Hello, my name is Arthur Conan Doyle, and I was born on May 22nd, 1859. I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I lived with my mother, Mary Doyle, and my father, Charles Doyle. My mother was the best storyteller. My father, however, kept my family distant in turmoil, and we didn't have a lot of money often due to his drunken habits. My mother's stories would help me obscure the facts of my life, as I said in my autobiography. When I turned 9 years old, my more wealthy family paid for me to go to school elsewhere, at a Jesuit boarding school. I hated it. I didn't want to be away from my family, and I caused problems a lot. Then, in 1876, instead of going down the artistic path like my family expected, and they've all done, I went down the medical field instead at the University of Edinburgh. Here I started writing short stories, and I also got introduced to the person who inspired me to write my famous character Sherlock Holmes. This was one of my professors, Dr. Joseph Bell. He influenced me with Sherlock Holmes because they were both masters of deduction, diagnosis, just deducing things in general. They were both very intelligent. Through the next couple years, I was traveling on boats, and I was a surgeon, and I followed through my medical field, and I got involved with some army doctor stuff. After all of that, in 1887, my real fame rose. This was when my famous novel, A Study in Scarlet, was first published. And this was basically when my famous characters, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, were first introduced. Then, a little bit down the line, I had a scare with the flu, and I decided that trying to balance my medical studies with my literature was not a good idea. So I decided to solely focus on writing, and I continued with my Sherlock novels. I was an author during the Victorian era, which was popular for mixing romanticism and realism together. Romanticism was found in Sherlock Holmes' almost inhuman way that he deduced his way through these cases and through solving them. It seemed unbelievable, but I made his deductions and his solutions to these cases realistic, so it made the story realistic along with it. Also, when my son died and the horrors of World War I had passed, I turned to the idea of spiritualism. Spiritualism is basically the religious practice based around the belief that we in the living can communicate with the afterlife. I was also very interested into just the supernatural in general. I wrote an entire story about fairies. At the end of my life, spiritualism took over my entire focus, and I toured around and gave lectures to people about it. My works from Sherlock have been seen to be the origin from modern detective literature. Most of my legacy was to campaign against injustices. I usually campaigned against the false criticisms against minorities that I saw. My motto, as I put in a student paper as a child, is to fear not and put it in print. I believe in speaking out against injustices no matter what the backlash is. If it's the truth, you put it down. A European who I think I would have seen eye to eye with is Alfred Dreyfus. He was a Jewish captain in the French army, and he was involved in the Dreyfus affair when he was falsely accused and convicted for treason. This was influenced mostly by the large amount of anti-Semitism going on at the time, and I believed I would have gotten along with him because I would have defended him and been friends with him. I don't stand for injustices, especially due just to nationalism.